Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Performance Zone. This is David Martin here with Pat Gross, and we have a wonderful, very interesting session for you guys today, as they're all interesting. But we kind of, it seems like we jump around, but these are all components that when you tie them together, when you align them, when you understand, even if you take a couple of them, it's going to really make a difference. When you get all these and you understand, some of them may not make sense right away, but if you stay with it, it's going to make a tremendous difference in everything you're doing. So with me, as always, on these particular special calls is Pat Gross. He's down in Australia. This is me. I'm back into the office. As you can see, got a little different background today. Last week we spoke about, or the last session was entrepreneurs, right, Pat? We talked about entrepreneurship, about how we feel there are some differences. And again, you can be a business owner and not be an entrepreneur. You can be an entrepreneur and not be a business owner. It's more of the mindset. It's more of the character traits. It's more of the habits. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit differently about a nice little interesting topic about giving is receiving. And again, expect some different viewpoints on this as well. It may not be quite what you think it is. So, Pat, let's get started with some of your thoughts on the whole concept about giving and receiving.
Okay. Yes, it's around, well, I think it's quite an interesting topic because, look, we always say there's no such thing as free lunch. But
yeah, tell me about it, especially at this day and age, for you to make that comment with everything going on. Absolutely, there is no free lunch.
Yeah, and look, it's something that came out clear. There is Dr. Robert Cialdini. A book he wrote, it's probably the marketing Bible as far as I'm concerned. And in there, he's got the law of reciprocation. And that's really interesting. This is what I'm talking about. There's no such thing as a free lunch, because and this is what happens in marketing is that you give away. I mean, everybody knows it. Sort of this is why you have the freebies on websites and stuff like that.
Sure.
Yes, it gets people's names onto your database, and that's good, but it also starts the relationship, because you by giving something away to somebody, in a way, they immediately become obligated to repay you.
Yeah, I mean, there's an exchange of value there, right? I'll give you this free thing if you give me your name, email address, and mobile phone number, or whatever it may be, right?
Oh, but when you've got something you sort of, if you start that journey, and you always say, do about 3 or 4, and then you do the sell or whatever you want to do.
Right.
I mean, that is using the psychology of
right.
This is the psychology of somebody feels more obligated to return something. So you offer new neighbors, and you sort of you go around asking for the cup of sugar, but you give a cup of sugar and you get the friendship back. So there's a lot of
the engagement, right? And that's something that, and this will come back later in the call, I'm sure. Sometimes people, we've talked about this, people it's been my experience that a lot of times people look for a tit for tat. If I give you a cup of sugar, then you give me a cup of sugar, right? I mean, it's not, they expect the same thing in return. They don't understand. Part of the whole thing about giving and receiving, in my experience, is number one, you may receive from a completely separate, if you give somebody something, you may receive from a completely separate source. And because it may not come back. If I give it to you, you may not give directly back to me. You may give to Oscar, right? We'll call him Oscar, right? We'll put some guy out there. You might be giving something to Oscar because I gave something to you, and you're continuing to give, but then you're receiving something, you receive something from me, but then you give to them, and Oscar receives from somebody else. It's rarely, I mean, it's direct in the sense that the relationship and the engagement is there, but people sometimes get too literal, like, well, I gave that thing to you, so you should give something back to me.
Yeah, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole now, because I totally agree. I'm going to talk about networking. The big thing for the last 2 years, especially, has been the online networking.
Right.
And of course, you have from the networking, you have the one-on-one follow-up calls for whatever purpose, right?
Right.
And they're usually around trying to build a relationship. And if you're somebody who's a service provider, and you're coupled up with somebody who actually is a multi-level marketer, for example, the multi-level marketer is probably, well, what they're looking for, especially if your relationship is around referrals. you know,
Right.
not necessarily the direct, you get the direct sell, invariably, you get the direct sell at you. And sometimes I feel really guilty about that because I really don't want, I'm not interested in the products.
Right.
It comes
Right.
just genuinely, I'm not in that space. I'm in the
Right.
networking space. I'm in the networking space. People got to realize that when they don't go in to sell, they're talking to somebody who's interested in sort of saying, how can we work together? How can we work together?
Right.
Not about, you know, and I've, you know, I've seen some, you know, I've experienced it where somebody's tried to sort of be nice to me and then suddenly I found myself with a big sell. So, but what I have found those conversations interesting is when people, again, it's about being, you know, going back to a previous week when we talked about never, you know, we were never asked, you know, people never asked us, is that once they let me find out what their problem is, which, you know, if they're trying to sell to me, their problem is simple. They're looking for new markets.
Right.
You know, they're looking for sales. So I start to unpack and who their target market is. And I realize that everybody's sort of blinkered. They've got this is their target market, this is it. Well, I open up new markets for them because I look, it's not just, it's a dimension further from just looking at the, you know, that's you know, 30-year-old male who plays soccer, blah blah blah.
Right. Right.
I actually then go into, well, what part of the community are these soccer players, for example? Now I'm just using, I don't know where this has come from, this has just come off the top of my head. So you might be selling sports products to soccer players. And then I go, okay, hang on a minute. In Australia, there is a strong tendency for people multicultural people come from overseas, you know, where soccer
Right.
is the world game.
Yep.
Everywhere except America and Australia, but football. and therefore, you know, it's one way that they connect. So you'll find that there's, so you could actually be saying, well, actually, you know, I was saying then, okay, so what you really need to know is look at these places where there might be a large multicultural, you know, sort of, you know, a community. So I'm looking for the communities that are represented by the community base of the customer that you're trying to target.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Health products, beautiful one. Again, this is an example, a real life example of talking to somebody. Health products, targeting binge eaters, women binge eaters. Okay, you know, they've got that problem. And when we started talking, and they were looking here, you know, this particular market, or they were all like the professionals and stuff like that. And I said to them, you do realize that there are, and in Australia, we have this, and I was really fascinated when I first arrived, a concept called the neighborhood house. It's a community center.
Right.
But they set up in houses originally. And they're community development organizations, and they run programs, and they're right in the middle of the community, and they've got direct access. Some of these binge eaters are women who probably are stuck at home with children, got, you know, image issues, all those. They don't have to be poverty, it could be middle class neighborhoods or whatever.
Sure. Right.
But so they're communities within communities, and who else is in that community? So we have these neighborhood houses. So it got her thinking, and actually I said to her, what you need to do is these houses are networked. So if you get to the networker or the center of the network, okay, then you get the whole community, you've got an access into a whole new target market. Well, it's the same target market, but it's in a different level.
Right.
Now what I'm trying to get at here, it's a great concept, but what did I get out of it? Okay. Right. I wasn't directly interested in binge eating sort of sessions.
Right.
I gave. I do a lot of giving when I'm in networking. And somebody said to me last week, oh, what did you get out of this network? I says, well, you know, money-wise, probably not a lot. But I've given a lot. And what I realized over the years, first of all, is in a network, don't expect to be new into a network, go to the network and immediately get business. And you're disappointed and you walk away. And then, it takes time to build that relationship. But what I find, and people say to me, because I'm a little bit left field, but that binge coach couldn't help me that, sort of directly, because that's what, I didn't want what she wanted. But there was two things. One, I'm known to her. So if she does come across my target market, she's a good, and this is why I'm visible. But secondly, and this is exactly what you're saying, David, because I've given, I get back from somewhere else.
Right.
It's like freeing up the space, like decluttering. All that concept, you free up the space, even giving, you will get back. But you don't, if you're in a situation like me, don't expect it to be a direct transaction, because that ain't going to happen.
Well, not only a direct transaction, because it's rare. I mean, you and I have both had experiences where things have come into us from out of the blue, or my friend Rich, who you've actually met. He has these things that just, especially a lot lately. And it's just like, he's been a good guy for the last, and as a business professional, since he was a teenager, he's been working, and he's just a nice guy, and he does things for people because he's a nice guy. And then all of a sudden, people start, that one company, he just bought a company with a really weird set of circumstances that, so he's got a potentially $1 million company. Things just show up, and it's rarely direct, but also is the patience aspect, right? We live in such a microwave mentality right now. Everybody expects, well, I do this, I'm going to go join this networking meeting, and I'll go to the first meeting, and then by the second meeting, I should have all these new clients. Well, no, because especially in talking about something like you're talking about with the neighborhood houses, you got to be around, you got to be consistent, you've got to understand that the payoff may not come until, the 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th, 15th meeting. And then the floodgates open, but not until then. I think people, it's all on a number of levels. If you're looking for a quick hit, giving, the whole giving to receive that's a slow build. It's like blogging and video, making a video channel and blogging. Those guys just didn't wake up one day. You hear about the guy, he makes $1 million every time he posts a video. Well, sure, but he didn't wake up one day and start a video channel and make $1 million. He's been doing it since YouTube was in existence. We actually used that example this morning on a marketing call that I was on, and the guy said, these people that build this way do it because they're consistent over a long period of time. And that's one of the keys, I think, in the giving and receiving, is be consistent. And don't give only so you can receive. That's kind of like, to me, that's a little, if because I love the way you do things, because having watched you over the last, 2 years now, right? You are certainly, you over deliver every time. You over deliver. And that's what I love about you. It's not a matter of like, well, could she have done more? No, you pretty much handed them on a silver platter some brilliant ideas. And I think that's another thing that people need to do, is it's okay to over deliver, and not worry about like, well, I gave that person X, so I should get wherever that comes from somewhere else. It should be X. No, it might be less. It might be more. It might be the same. It may not be, it may be in parts, but it's part of it is the mindset. It's the energy. It's the spirit in which you do it. Right. I think that's all part of it when you were giving and receiving as well.
The experience is accumulative as well, because you're giving something, you may be giving your skills, expertise, your time,
right? And
you're learning along the way. Okay. Now we talk about coming in from somewhere else, and thing, but also it could be a linear process of time in the future, because you might be on a journey yourself and not realize it. So you're giving your time to be part an experience, to be part of this new experience. You're learning new skills along the way, and then, as you say, one day along the line, you're suddenly the expert, the overnight success, because
Right.
you've given all that time. I'm just thinking about that because
he just cracked me up with the overnight success thing, because it's like the stories of all these people that worked for 20 years to become an overnight success just popped into my head. So
yeah, and it is. It is. You got me thinking myself about some of the stuff I'm doing currently. We were just talking earlier about. It's interesting because I work in my clients are mainly in the community non-for-profit space, and one of the things we do as the community entrepreneur is take the business goals and overlay them into the not-for-profit space, which is great. Now, what's happening now is the other way, as it's saying, because of COVID, we're now teaching community development skills in the business space. So
it's relevant. Well, and this is something you said to me a long time ago, and you said it again, I believe, last week. And that is the aspect of most people the average person looks at a non-for-profit as not a business, when they should look at it as a business. It's just got a different model. The model is still, just because it says not for profit doesn't mean they don't have financial obligations and responsibilities and goals and targets, et cetera. And that was something that really kind of, shall we say, certainly redefined the way I look at nonprofits.
Some of my clients are $1 million businesses. It just means the money does not go back to shareholders. It goes back into the business. By definition.
Yeah, by definition, right? By definition. I'm sure they have their little seepages somewhere, but I mean, but I know what you mean though. There's responsibilities, and most people look like the not-for-profit, that's, and I've been there when I was in network marketing, right? Multi-level marketing. I was not for profit for a while because I wasn't making any profit. But it's really interesting. Just again, the way you're talking about now, taking those skills from it used to be, take the business skills, get them into the nonprofit so that they run more efficiently, they can have more money to put back into the business. Now you're talking about taking those skills from the nonprofits, which is going to be more engagement, more interaction, and less profit oriented. I mean, it's not, or maybe that's not the right words. There's a different orientation, I guess, I'm just not
social. Yes, social. They are very sort of socially oriented as opposed to economically oriented.
Yeah, you know what? We have some of that out here with the Native American. We have a lot of casinos here, and they're Native American casinos. And a good friend of mine, he is an expert at working within that community and doing turnarounds. Basically, he'll come in and take over a casino, and he'll turn it around and make it profitable. But he does so specifically in the Native American community, because I don't know if he studied it or how he was raised. He just, for some reason, has the knack of how to interact with that community. And he said, look, and he told me one time, he said, look, in a casino in Vegas, what is their motive? Profit. That's it. He said, when you look at a native casino, their motive is not profit. Their motive is the well-being of their people.
Yes.
And it has to do with, okay, what can we do with this casino that is now a profitable casino? How does that impact the schools, the food distribution, the public services, the water, the payouts to the people in what they call them pueblos. And it's just fascinating that, I think we all need to broaden our scope a little bit, right? In how things work, especially because the world is changing. Paul Zane Pilzer said in his book, Unlimited Wealth, that the world is going to change. And this was in 1990. And he talked about how technology is going to change it. It's all going to be different. We're seeing a lot of groups now. A lot of companies are going more, hey, let's take a look at how we can better take care of our people. Right. And
Yeah, you're talking about social enterprises and social corporate corporate social responsibility here. Again, it's giving back. So as you said, it's not entirely profit oriented. It's about giving back. It's about, as you said, the welfare. Yeah, the social enterprise culture has grown exponentially. But I actually remember back in the 1990s, and there was near the university where I used to work, there was a coffee house, the Java Coffee Bar. And again, that was actually a social enterprise then, back then. It's free trade, the free trade movement. The coffee, not, I think that's what it was. I can't, you know what I mean anyway. Again, it was about, paying people properly. For harvesting the cocoa beans, etc. So, and again, there was a lot of, and what happens there, and big businesses are, cottoned onto this pretty quickly, is that it's good for the brand. So they again, they're giving back to the people, depending on what their enterprise is about, but at the same time they're receiving that accolade, that sort of that brand recognition for who they are. I mean, like there's a few, good examples out there. So again, that's an example in the corporate area of giving or giving back and receiving is I mean, their motive is to give back, but I mean, at the same time, it doesn't harm their profits.
Right. Well, and there's and
people are buying into it.
It's interesting you say that, because there's oftentimes whenever there's an opportunity, when the girls were younger, right? Now they're a little older, so hopefully we've instilled that kind of stuff in them. But we'd always, whenever there was an opportunity, we would show them. I mean, if it doesn't harm you, don't put yourself here. And this is a key thing, guys. My recommendation is not to just go out and start giving everything away because you're going to give it away. So use positive energy and I'll just get to receive it all back. Don't put yourself in a bind, right? I mean, I've seen people do stuff like that. But if you're in the line and at the grocery store, and it was Christmas one year, we were down in El Paso, Texas. We were in the we were in the line, and this guy was trying to buy some food. And I'm sitting there, it was taking him a while because he was trying to dig in his pocket, his pants. And the food he had was like orange juice and some eggs. And, it looked like, okay, he's not buying booze. He's not buying candy. He's not buying junk food. He's buying food that looks like he's trying to feed his family. And he was a couple dollars short. So I just took out, I said, here, I got it. Merry Christmas. And Sophie asked me, she said, why did you do that? I said, well, we're blessed, number one. If you can do something and help someone that's not going to put you in a difficult, a couple dollars didn't hurt me either way. I mean, it was just something, what am I going to do? Spend it on go buy a coffee somewhere? I mean, which would be nice, but it's Christmas time, it's a holiday time, be blessed. And you do that. So do it for reasons like that to help someone, not just because I'm going to give so I can get back. If that makes, am I making it? Because I don't want people to get lost into the specifically, I'm only going to give so I can get back. That's just a caveat that I want to have out there. Do it for the right reason, do it for a good reason, and do it when you can. And little opportunities. If you think about giving it, Jim Rohn used to talk about that. He used to say, little things. Don't let little things mess you up. Like if you're thinking about tipping, Jim was real big on tipping. And his thing was, when you tip, if your thought is to give them, and my wife gets nuts about this, right? Because she'll say, you tip too much. And I said, well, if it's the difference between giving them $5 and $6, I'm giving them $6. I'm not going to feel bad because if we look back on the day and think that the service was really good and I only gave her $5, I should have given her $6. I'm going to feel bad about $1. But if I look at it this way, the service wasn't that good and I gave him $6, it's only $1. Right. And so she kind of laughs because I mean, I've also waited tables. So I tell people, if you've never waited table, people that have waited tables or been in the service industry tend to tip more anyway. I mean, especially here in a very much a tipping culture.
Yeah.
So I like that. I mean, I enjoy that thing when you sit down and, I'll teach the girls, tip well. minimum 20% every time. And again, my wife says it should be 15. I want to err on that side because, you know, we never know that little bit. So do little things for people. It doesn't have to be huge. Like, here's $100. If you can do that, great. But I mean, sometimes that extra couple bucks, or the kindness you show in a grocery line, or buying somebody a sandwich that's, you know, obviously homeless and they're trying to wash your windshield to make money. That kind of stuff too is also very relevant in the giving scheme of putting some positive spirit on the right side, if that makes sense. I know I'm kind of bouncing around there, but that to me is important.
Yeah, and going back to what we originally called this was giving is receiving. Let someone else pick up the check.
Right. That was, let's rope this one back in. Sorry.
Yeah. No. It's right. No, it's similar in a way. Is that you know, if somebody does offer to pay, don't insult them. Let them pay.
Yeah.
Because they will get it back. I mean, they want to pay. I know it sounds a bit weird, but you know, it's sort of like you go through that. It gives them joy. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you know, we've had this conversation too. Then there's the people who always want to pay, and that gets annoying because it's like, it's kind of cool. If you can pick up the check once in a while, pick up the check. And if somebody else wants to pick it up, let them pick it up. I mean, you know, giving is receiving, and let them pick up the check. If someone offers, it's okay because they're finding some joy and some pleasure in doing that. And it's not up to us to take that away from them. Right. I mean, and I totally agree. If someone offers, you know, I have certain family members who make it annoying because they always think that they have to pick up the check to show, you know, that's more ego in my opinion. Right. Because it's more of a look what I did again. But if somebody else wants, if in general, and, you know, it's funny because Jim Rohn also said, take a millionaire to lunch. And back at the time, I was like, why would I take a millionaire to lunch? If he's a millionaire, why shouldn't he pay? And Jim said, because, you know, you should pay because he's kind enough to go to lunch for you and you can learn from him. So it made sense in that way. But there's never been a time that I've invited someone out to lunch in that particular context of saying, hey, I'd like to interview, I'd like to treat you to lunch. They let me pay. You know, and that was like that. I thought that's kind of cool. They let me pay. Now, there's a couple of times where the guy said, my treat, I got it. It's already taken care of. You know, come to my restaurant. I don't want to go to your restaurant, then you're going to pay. But but oftentimes I thought that they were very appreciative that I had invited them. And it wasn't about me trying to get a free meal out of them. It was me, you know, genuinely asking sincere questions about business, about life, about, you know, how did they achieve what they achieved, etc. And they were greatly appreciative. So
there's a lot to be learned from that statement, what you've just said. There's a lot to be learned.
Yeah, just because, you know, I'll also remember Jim said, people say, if I had more money, I'd take better care of it. And he said, I would suggest that if you took better care of it, you'd have more money. That was Jim or Larry Todd. I think I heard it from both Jim and Larry. But it's true, right? I mean, you know, these people, they understand giving and receiving. They understand on a variety of levels. They understand money, right? And money is not the, you know, that's all. It's a tool, folks. It's a tool. Learn to use the tools and learn to be a master at using the tools. If you were a carpenter, you'd be a master at using your tools. You could be a master carpenter. So why can't you, why not be a master money manager? I think my wife is really good at that. I'm going to have to start maybe stealing some ideas from her and say, wow, what does she do? She's pretty good at that. All right. But no, that's an interesting, just popped into my head. Why not? If you're a carpenter or a mechanic, you're a master with your tools. And if money's a tool, why not become a master of your money, using your money? That might have to be another. Put another one on the list, Pat. Put another one on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of the list, we've got a few more of these where we're going to go, and then we're going to wrap these up probably in the next couple of weeks and put these into a bundle. So make sure, folks, you reach out, get in touch with Pat. You can do Pat@thecommunityentrepreneur.com, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Or look
Or
at
LinkedIn.
Patricia Gross on LinkedIn, yes.
Patricia Gross, spelled Grosse, if you're looking for
Yes.
to find her there. And you can reach me at David M, as in Martin, at cygnusnlp.com. That's CYGNUSNLP.com. And, we'll be creating members areas so you guys will be able to go in and watch these. You might be watching this right now. We don't know. But this is really cool. We want to be able to provide access because a lot of this information, some of the stuff we did was funny. Some of it was kind of out there, but some of it may involve you coming back and listening to it a few times to really grasp the concept. And that's kind of what I want to encourage you to do, that because the more I listen, if you saw my computer right now, I've got these member areas up. I'm listening to audios. I download the audios. I've got a book right here that I come in and I pick this up each and every day and go over it. Why? Because there's important stuff in here. Think of it like the athletic model, right? And I forget somebody said that. I forget where I saw that today. They said, pursue it like an athletic model. And I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger do something the other day, and he was doing all his Arnold stuff, going, what are you doing? And, I slept 5 years ago, but why do I still sleep every day? And he had a really good point, because what he was getting at, and what I'm getting at with this and with the other things and taking an athletic approach, and especially having a daughter, as you said, football, we'll call it the real football, not that American fake stuff. But as she's an athlete over there, recovering and playing over there, they train, it's every day. When I was at the Olympic Training Center, they said it's not once every 4 years that you just show up at the Olympics, it's every day. And it's the same thing. I read my goals, I read the things I need to work on every day, but when I wake up and every night before I go to bed. When you look at the athletic model, the athletes train. Part of training includes rest. I don't know if I haven't told you, I've been going to bed early every night. Instead of staying up till midnight, 1 o'clock, which is my norm, knowing that I can wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning on 5 hours sleep and have my day. I thought, again, especially as hard as I've been training physically and all these other things, I need the rest. So I'm trying to hit it at 10 o'clock every night, which is kind of odd because my body's used to sleeping 6 hours. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, wing, and I'm waking up. So I go back to sleep. But practice. So come back in, watch these videos. Reach out. If you're working with Pat or if you're working with me, do the exercises every day. Fundamental. Listen to an audio you don't need to listen to the news. The news is going to tell you your life sucks and you're going to die. It'll tell you that every day. It's not something you need to be filling your head, all the time. The news is going to be the news. I tell people, like years ago, I was flying to, it was actually right after Sophie was born. So Andrea was not happy with me because it was literally within 2 weeks after she was born, I went on a 3-week trip. And I went from New Mexico to Florida, then to Mexico, then back to Florida. And on the first trip to Florida, from the time I got on the plane till the time I landed in Tampa, there was a tropical storm that was heading that way. But from the time I flew to the time I landed, it had turned into a hurricane. And so people say, if you don't watch the news, how do you find out? I said, because I don't want to hear all the time about, the storms come, the storm and this, and it's going to be bad and the weather. And there's no benefit to it. But from the time I left to the time when I landed, I turned on my phone, I got all these messages. Hey, I know you're in Tampa. The storm's headed your way. Everybody else was telling me about all the crap that was going on. So I let them deal with it. And I'm going to find out. I look at the news as soon as I land. Oh, okay. So I had to leave a day early. I finished up the seminar. Instead of leaving the Sunday morning, I left on Saturday night, got to Houston, got out of the way of the storm. And so, we don't have to watch the news 24/7. We don't have to have the news plugged into our phones, so that we get every update from CNN or Fox or the BBC or Al Jazeera or whatever news source Epoch Times, whatever news source you plug into. Fill your mind with positive stuff, and that's another great way you'll receive things is when you keep your mind focused in a positive direction. When you keep your mind focused with positive things, it's another one of those plinks on the right side of the scale. Like when you do something nice for someone without expectation of receiving anything in return. That's another part of giving and receiving, is sometimes just do it because it's a good thing to do. But when you put those positive plinks on there, all of a sudden the world opens up and you see many more positive things. End of rant. Sorry.
Okay, so next week we're going to be looking, and you actually started to segue into this, is investing in you.
Yes.
Oh, yes. In
It
you,
takes a lot.
me, oh, yes. So we'll be talking about that next week or in the next session.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all stations in life, remember to put everything you have into everything you do, because the best is yet to come. We'll see you next time.